What if the moment that breaks everything is a rent notice? And what if the right help could show up fast enough to stop the spiral before housing turns into job loss, before isolation turns into hopelessness? Welcome back to Serious Talk, the Military Minute, the series where we honor veterans and military spouses by spotlighting the resources that actually move the needle during transition. I'm Greg Banks. I'm grateful you're here with me today. In this episode, I'm joined by Matt Maples, the Texas Director for USA Cares, an organization founded to bring stability to veteran families by helping keep them in their homes and in their jobs, especially when a crisis is about to hit. We talk candidly about the realities behind veteran suicide risk, why housing instability can become a tipping point, and how rapid, targeted support can create breathing room and a bridge to longer-term resources. Thanks for coming along with me. Let's get into it. All right, great pleasure. Today, I have on the show Matt Maples. Matt is with USA Cares, and I'm going to let Matt set the table, if you will, for the organization and some of its founding. Matt, there's so many pieces that go into the VSOs and the needs of our veterans and our military spouses. And what we really seek to do on the show here, Matt, is find programs that we're able to obtain firsthand knowledge that these move the needle. They make a difference in our veteran community. But from the time they go in to their time of service to the time they come out, and that might be 20, 25 years after they get out, we need to be doing whatever it is we need to do to support our veterans. They wrote a check to give their life to our country, and our country should be able to reciprocate and look out for them for the life that they have thereafter. We want to hear all aspects of this, but I really appreciate you making time for us today. Why don't you start by a little bit of background about you and USA Cares?
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you and your esteemed audience today, Greg. Thank you so much for having me. So, as you said, my name is Matt Maples, and I'm the Texas Director for USA Cares. And USA Cares is an organization that was started in 2003 by some individuals in the Army, some Army officers out of Fort Knox, Kentucky. And they saw some disturbing trends from veterans who were coming back in the first few waves of soldiers from Afghanistan back in 2003. And unfortunately, the disturbing trends that they were starting to see they proved to be true. And here's basically it. Suicide has become the leading cause of death among U.S. military personnel, with service members now nearly 9 times more likely to die by suicide than they are by combat. I'll let that sink in for just a moment. That is the challenge that we are facing, and we'll talk more about that in our conversation. But what we were founded on with USA Cares is a principle of trying to help veterans stay with their families in their homes and in their jobs. We're trying to bring stability to veteran families.
Man, this is a hard topic. I live in this, so I know every day you can get up with all the passion in the world because you want to make a difference, but that reality stares you in the face. And truth be told, I didn't put on the colors, I didn't put on the uniform, but I've been close to people who did, and you see it. There's not a time that I see something and don't share it or whatever that I don't have somebody call out going, yeah, this happened to 7 people in my platoon or whatever. Like there's not anybody that's worn that uniform in the last 25 years that this doesn't just, it's a blinking red light that's in their, not in their rearview mirror, but in their windshield because they see it all the time. I was just in Arlington a couple of weeks ago, and they said they do 20 to 25 funerals a day. There was no stats beyond that of, recent service, old age. I don't know. Here's the facts. One's too many. One is absolutely too many. And when we connect and we started telling this, man, this just hit me in a way that I can't explain. It's part of the reason for my passion. I fell in love with an apparel company called Nine Line, who makes a lot of T-shirts and stuff, but it's veteran owned, veteran run, and everything they do, that money feeds right back in to kind of come at this. But the first shirt I bought from them had a 22 on it. Veteran Lives Matter. And therein really spurned some passion in me to not just thank a veteran, buy a cup of coffee and move on with my day, but to try and do something, anything that tries to get between here and hopelessness, which certainly is the beginning of the slide that you're talking about here, man. So I can't fathom as an organization how you go about attacking that. I know we'll unpack a little bit today of the research you guys have done of saying if that's a place, how do we get on this side of that and trying to do all we can that people don't go down that slide, if you will, where things start to fall apart. So why don't you kind of go to that next level, talk about, as you guys found that, what were some things you learned of the markers that a veteran may find themselves in that's seems to be the point of no return.
Yeah. Thank you for the question, Greg. That's very kind. So I'm like you. I am an individual who I was not able to serve in the military myself because I have asthma. And when I tried to join the military, it was in the middle of the 1990s. There were no exceptions to be had. So
Right.
they told me to go ahead and leave. So I did that. But I am the son of a Marine, and most importantly, the grandson of a World War II Army veteran who served in France and Germany and was extremely influential in my life. He was very significant in my life. So I have a heart for our veterans. What we find is that our veterans are facing a number of different crises that are putting them in positions where we're seeing that their families are getting broken up, that their lives are getting disrupted, and it's often leading them to the point where they're deciding to take their own life, sadly. And it's really, I call it a toxic stew of things, not necessarily one thing, but it seems to be a combination of things that have led us to this point. One, we have veterans that they're coming out of the military service and they've got ongoing physical injuries. I have yet to meet a veteran that doesn't have ongoing physical injuries with either his or her back, knees, and or hearing. Those are, and usually it's a combination of more than one. Three is not unheard of at all. And you have those kind of ongoing just nuisances, those challenges that come with that. But then you start layering onto that things that are even more difficult in many ways. So, for instance, we've got the loss of your community. So the platoon or the team that our veterans had served in when they were active duty was family to them, and they've now been separated from that, and it's a major loss. You go on to a challenging transition, moving from active duty service to figuring out what my purpose is when I get into the civilian world. What am I now supposed to do? What is my life over, or is there still meaning to my life? These are
Mhm.
some of the questions that we hear quite frequently from veterans. And then you've got the one that we have all heard about. So you have PTSD, and PTSD comes on top of that and can cause real havoc with veterans. And it comes on in very surprising and in seemingly random ways oftentimes. So a veteran can seem like they're doing just fine, and then they get to a point to where they're not. So you kind of start putting these kinds of things together, and you come to a point where you create an environment that makes it very difficult for many of our veterans to be able to face, their lives going forward.
Yeah, I can just through conversations that I've had in the months of doing this podcast, when they're deployed, their people, right, their platoon and their purpose is clear. It's ever present. It's a 24/7 thing. You're never more than one shout from help of people you've learned to trust, that you put your life in their hands. And if all the other things, if the injuries and the fear of finding civilian work, if all that stuff went away, just losing people and purpose by itself, anybody who's ever been alone for any length of time, look what they do in prisons. They put you in solitary confinement. It drives people crazy, right? That the only thing changed is your people, and that still drives them crazy. So this is a pretty toxic combination to put those two things together. So it's not surprising, terribly disappointing. And
Yeah.
I think I'm hearing more organizations. Robert Irvine is one I recently heard about, but a lot of times a platoon, like they'll talk in group text and like, we need to get together. And they have that same statement for a decade and they never do. So I think his organization is trying to work to say, if there's a group that's serious about it and they can get free of their families long enough to go do that, then they want to make that get together happen. Like sometimes just putting those people back together, man, it pulls a lot of pressure out of the balloon, so to speak, to come back to a place where they trust and they feel comfortable. Man,
Absolutely.
yeah. I know
Yeah, I
there's more
couldn't
than
agree more.
three dozen things that you didn't mention in that stew, like difficulty dealing with the VA and all that kind of stuff. So
Oh yeah,
yeah,
we could go on for quite
yeah,
some
sure,
time. But
sure.
what we've done is we've gotten to a point though where we've created a scenario. So we had a 22-year war on terrorism from 2001 to 2023 officially. In that period of time, we lost we lost about 7,500 active duty soldiers, which is a tragedy. But being the grandson of of someone who landed at Normandy, I recognize. I mean, we lost many, many, many more than that. There, it's just a testament of how efficient and effective our military really is overall. In that same 22-year period, though, Greg, we lost about 144,000 veterans to suicide. This is not a small problem. This is a five-alarm fire in many ways, and that is what we are trying to do. We're trying to meet some of these needs to reduce this number at USA Cares. And here's kind of simply how we do that. And what we have come to realize is we've realized there's generally a crossroad where that a veteran will come to, that kind of, if they pass through this and things go wrong, then the chances of things turning out poorly for them starts to go up exponentially, if that makes sense. So what we find is that there's usually a point where a veteran is unable to, for a number of reasons, they're unable to meet their usually mortgage or rent need. And they come to a point to where they're about to be evicted or foreclosed on. What we do is we come in, we try and help them by providing emergency grants that will help keep them and their families in their homes and in their jobs. Because one of the things that we have found, if we want to address this problem of veteran suicide, and we want to change it, we need to get at some of the fundamental problems that are causing it to begin with. Some of those are just the catastrophic challenges of, like, if you're facing eviction or foreclosure, it's like your life is coming apart at that point. It's like, what, it's the foundational needs we have as people. If we can't meet our housing needs, our food, our clothing needs, some of those basic things, then it's going to be extremely difficult for us to be able to address some of the other challenges that we also have, like the trauma, the emotional problems, and some of those other things.
And I would imagine the other factors that weigh in, the velocity at which those things come at you once you lose your home, accelerate dramatically, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And let's just take, for example, for a moment, just the financial cost, the fixed cost. So we know that our average assistance that we give is around $4,200 for a family. So we come in and we provide a grant on behalf of the veteran and their family that pays their rent or their mortgage or whatever is appropriate for them. That's the average number that we've got. However, if they get evicted and they become homeless, the cost of them getting into another place, I mean, we know that we can easily triple that amount on average. And that's not including any of the other additional costs to, like, health challenges from being homeless or emotional trauma or anything like that. Just the accident cost to get into a place and get the utilities and stuff like that on. So,
Well, I mean, that's a solid metric, though, right? I mean, there's so many things that are really hard to quantify when it comes to this issue. But that's a tangible one. And, like, it doesn't take a lot of thought to sit and think about, in the back of my mind, I hear this country song that I lost my house, I lost my wife, I lost my truck, whatever. But in reality, like, I've got a place with stuff and I no longer have a place. Where'd my stuff go? Right? They may have lost their vehicle before they got to that point, just in that place. And you're not talking about a thing that starts feeling desperate. You're talking about a thing that absolutely is desperate. There's no negotiating, right? These things are, once the momentum and those things pick up, like, it spirals and snowballs, and the ramifications of what all that's going to knock out on the way before it stops, before you hit bottom, whatever that looks like. It's a much more difficult force to slow down, much less stop once it starts, right?
absolutely. It absolutely is, Greg. You bring up a good point too, because you also create some other challenges that you don't necessarily foresee. When you lose your place and you end up on the street, you also lose your stuff. And included in that stuff, and I've had multiple conversations with veterans in this scenario, is you lose a lot of your paperwork and a lot of your documentation and everything. So that also then makes it difficult for you to get your services you need
Reestablish.
from the VA or from anything else. It's kind of a snowball that once it gets going downhill, it's really, really tough to stop.
I can only imagine, man. Talk a little bit about the numbers, right? I mean, I think anytime I talk to a VSO, and I heard this stat a couple weeks ago in DC that there are 40,000 VSOs in America. Like the problem's so big, there's that many different organizations trying to come at it and solve all sorts of things. And at the end of the day, every program has to find its lane, so to speak, to stay in. Like, this is the problem we're going at,
Yeah.
and this is the size of it, and we're going to try and make our dent in whatever way. Talk to me a little bit about what the last few years been like. What's it look like today? How many people a week or a month are you looking at? I'm sure you have stats. Let's go over some of
Yes.
those.
So let me give you some stats from our annual report, and it's going in a 10-year, or like 2011 to 2024. In that period, we assisted, well, the top 5 states that we assisted, because we assist veterans from all over the country. The top 5 states we assisted $2.49 million in aid to Texas veterans. We assisted $1.32 million in aid to Florida veterans. We assisted $1.23 million in aid to California veterans. Georgia was our 4th state with $1.09 million, and Kentucky being the 5th state with $1.07 million in aid. And this is kind of how it broke down, Greg, and that housing expenses, and that was about 60 or so percent of all of that amount, coming out to just under $8.5 million of that. Because housing is by far the one that we try to deal with the most. It's expensive, it's difficult, and there's very few other organizations out there that are willing to help in a way like we will. We're going to help by actually getting your payment caught up and try to get you square with your whoever you owe the money to. Vehicle expenses came in next. So we helped with about $3.5 million in vehicle expenses. So with the vehicle expenses, it's especially relevant where I live. I live in the Austin, Texas area. And in Texas, if you don't have your car, keeping your job is going to be extremely difficult.
Yeah, it's not New York City. You don't have the subway, do you? Not much of an option in Texas.
No, and if you notice the states that we've largely been working in too, they all have similar situations. Texas, Florida, California, Georgia, Kentucky. We all, in many, many parts of the United States, we need our car to be able to keep our job. So we help with car repairs and make sure that they're in a situation where they can keep their car and hold on to that. Next would be utilities. I mean, you got to keep the lights on, right? So the utilities come in at about $1.3 million. Then we do help with some food situation, some food, phone services, stuff like that, and then some fuel and other essential needs. But the bulk of it, the vast majority, is housing, the automotive vehicle expenses, and the utilities.
Trying to do math in my head, but I was also trying to listen, so I gave up on the math. So the first thing that comes to mind when I hear what you're saying, and this is just a pessimist in me, and it's imagining what a listener might ask me. Somebody contacts you and said, I'm behind on my mortgage. I'm about to be evicted and my truck's going to be repoed. So I'm going to lose where I sleep. I'm going to lose where I work. And once I lose where I work, everything falls apart. So they come to you. I'm sure you guys have some kind of stats on this. You pay that, you get all that squared away. What's the rate of return? Like, do they come back again? How many times does somebody come back 3 months later and say, I need more money or whatever? What kind of stats do you have on that?
I don't have that stat in front of me, but I do know that we're designed to be an organization that we're trying to help you out of that initial crisis. Then what we want to do, Greg, is we want to come alongside you, we come alongside our veterans, and then try and help them figure out what is it we're taking the immediate crisis off the table, right? So they're reaching out to us and they're saying I'm about to be evicted. And this is something we haven't mentioned yet. That one thing that I love about our organization is they'll reach out to us, and we're recording this in the middle of a week. And so they would call today and then they would say, at the end of the week, I'm being evicted. What we are able to do is we are able to come in quickly within an average of about 48 hours, and we're able to then help them and deal with that situation. So we try to calm the storm. We try to give them an opportunity to take a breath, and then we work with them and try to figure out, now that we've got this crisis off the table and you're not getting evicted this weekend, what is it that we need to do now? So what kind of resources do you need help with? What kind of connections do you would it be helpful for us to make? Like, is it, helping you get connected with with the VA or with another kind of organization or counseling, some kind of resource like that, whatever may be the case. So our goal, Greg, is to be that emergency stopgap and then help them build a bridge to more sustainable lives after that, to where they
That
don't
makes
get
an awful
back
lot
in.
of sense. Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. When somebody goes through this and you guys have come alongside, there's all different kinds of programs out there where like there's mentorship and stuff like that. And I hear so much. I've yet to come across a veteran who didn't find some way to give back, even if they didn't really have something to give. They've got time and they have all the passion in the world because whatever purpose they find post service doesn't scratch that itch that the time in the service, in fact, built up in them. So there's always this desire to find a brother or sister and stand in the gap. But so
Absolutely.
if somebody comes alongside and let's just say best case scenario, right? That stops the problem for them, the urgency of it. And then they walk the path of getting back on their 2 feet and doing whatever they need to get their family cared for and protected. What are some ongoing things you see with the programs? What are challenges you face? Like you share some stuff with me about Texas in particular that's kind of a hotbed due to just the concentration of military bases, stuff like that. But I mean, in some ways that creates a problem that's hard to solve because there's so much of them there that might have a need. But in the other sense, it's also a solution to the problem because there's so many there who have that desire to fulfill a purpose and go help somebody out. So what does that look like playing out in Texas?
I love that question, Greg. Because and one of the things that I love about working with veterans is that veterans by nature they're often very generous people. They often are getting into the military in order to serve, and then that character, that personality, or the desire to serve doesn't go away when they take off the uniform. They want to find other ways where they can give back and everything. So I have many veterans that they end up becoming monthly donors to us. I have got veterans who are helping us put together fundraising events, veterans who are helping us in whatever way possible. We've got some just amazing people that are willing to reach out to other veterans, that are willing to really try and set up a scenario to help those veterans and everything. So it's really amazing to see the community that kind of comes together in the different areas that I work.
It's really hard not to be affected when you're around that bunch of people, right? It's just inspiring in a
Absolutely.
way that it's not the kind of stuff they teach in school. You like to think people are learning it at their house to look out for a neighbor and extend a hand. It's just not the natural thing that we see in America these days. Fundraising.
Yes, sir.
You talked about an awful lot of money in a short period of time that went through y'all's hands into the hands of these families. I'm certain I hear from a lot of VSOs these days that fundraising right now is very difficult. Talk to me about where your fundraising comes from. I assume you have corporate partnerships and stuff like that, but what does that look like for where your money comes from? How do y'all build momentum in that? How do you get the word out that more is needed? Does that go beyond the 5 states? Is that like a nationwide search for? I'm sure you'll take money wherever it comes from, but what does that look like for fundraising for you guys?
Yeah, we serve all 50 states. We're constantly working to fundraise. Like,
Yeah, I'm sure.
the numbers that we talked about earlier, that adds up to about we gave out just under $15 million in support to different veterans. And I don't know that there's a way to calculate how many lives that has saved, but has impacted an incredible number of families. Because we also need to remember this too, Greg, is that every veteran that we're talking about, you also have to remember that there's generally a family connected with them as well.
Yeah, sure,
So that's a spouse, that's
sure.
kids. There's a whole lot of people that are being impacted. But you are correct. We are an organization we are reliant on the goodwill and support of our fellow citizens, of our fellow Americans, of our fellow supporters of our veterans. So we are constantly working we have individual donors who can, maybe they jump in and they decide they want to give monthly to us. We love that. And I encourage people to even consider starting with a number of about 22 per month, $22 per month. That is really kind of in recognition of the number 22, which is the generally agreed on number of how many veterans we lose each day to suicide, Craig. We lose one
Yeah.
about every 65 minutes, and we're just ready for that to end. So a donation of someone of $22 a month can make a difference in helping make that happen. we do events around the country as well. So we do fundraising events with individuals, with companies, and so on. And we are always looking for partners in those kinds of ventures. We also have created chapters. So we have chapters that are all over the country and stuff. Volunteers of largely a lot of them are they're veterans or people who are highly supportive of veterans. And they come together and they put on different fundraising events and stuff around the country in support of the work that we're doing at USA Cares. And then, as you referenced, we also have corporate sponsors and grants
Sure.
and stuff like that. And we are just very appreciative of all of the different support that we get and all the different ways that it comes in.
I don't mean to say this statement in any kind of political way, but we just hear so many things about the evil of people having too much money. But I will say, I feel like in the last 6 months to 2 years, I hear more philanthropic work being done by organizations who are writing crazy checks to organizations to go make difference where causes are needed. And I hope that's something that comes your guys' way. I'm sure there are other things about the program, and I want to give you a chance to kind of articulate any that we've not spoken to through questions. But I want to make sure before we wrap up, I want to talk to if somebody wants to engage about becoming a donor, or if somebody is going to reach out to you. I want to make sure that we're supplying links to both of those in our show notes and on our website for the podcast. How somebody would go about getting out in contact with you for anything. But talk about that program if somebody.
Yeah.
I know you had told me in some pre-work, if somebody engages, you mentioned 48 hours. That's a very, very short window. And I understand why you have to be that way because they're desperate, right? Wolf's at the door. But talk about how, if somebody does engage, what does that process look like going from them making first point of contact to them getting a check?
So what typically happens is they get referred. So we have people that are referred to us generally. So like other organizations will have a veteran that is in need of the kind of help that we give, and they will reach out to us and connect those individuals to us. We have a call center in our main office in Louisville, Kentucky, and they can call that call center. We have program caseworkers who will then work with that veteran and their family and start to figure out their situation. And what we'll do is we'll direct them to our website, usacares.org. And on our website, there is an application that they can fill out. So they would fill out a simple application telling us a little bit about their situation, like what is their debt, that kind of information, and their personal, like who they are, their contact info, and so forth. Just the basic information. Then we just ask for some documentation about the debt that they owe, and a copy of their DD 214. And that just tells us the status of their military. We work with almost all military status, active and veteran, as long as they're in good standing with the military. And they give us that kind of documentation, and then we process that, reach out to their creditor and everything, and then make arrangements. So
that was a point that I wanted to make sure we got to was this is because again, time is of the essence. They call you and it's not like you send them a check. They got to wait till the bank opens, go cash it, and then you're going directly at the creditor to solve the problem so they can literally begin immediately. Once you guys have worked out the process and approved it, they can breathe. And time is everything there, right?
Absolutely, Greg. Yeah, what we also want to take away any kind of other possibilities too, right? We want to keep it as clean, as efficient as possible. So we don't give money to individuals. We give money directly to whoever it is they owe the money to, a landlord, a bank, whatever is appropriate for the situation. But we go directly to them. And we work hard to make sure that our accounting is clean and that our finances are good. We're not a large organization in the sense of, most people haven't heard of us. We don't have the ability or the kind of nationwide media or anything like that. We're small but mighty, right? But a lot of that, Greg, is because if someone sends $1 to us, right about 89 cents of that is going to go to veterans. So like 89% of the money that is coming into USA Cares is going to go to help veterans, which means that we have to run a very lean operation otherwise. Everything else has to be very, very efficient and stuff. But we pride ourselves on being very collaborative and working with our veterans who are in need and trying to make sure that that's taken care of as quickly as possible so that they have the opportunity to the way I phrase it is they can kind of take a breath, and we can work with them to figure out, okay, let's relax a second, and now let's figure out what is it that we need to do next.
That's great. And we're not going to say the thing out loud, so to speak, but I understand what you're saying. If you were just to cut them a check, temptation and mail theft and all kinds of other things potentially creep into that to take a bad situation and make it remarkably worse. Like, let's get to not just solving your symptoms, but solving your problems.
Right.
So the minute that pressure's let off the steamer, so to speak, you guys can stay engaged and help work through those things one at a time. Man, a million questions come to mind. We may have to do a follow-up on some of these, but it's great to hear it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we'll definitely have some more conversation. Is the best way to contact them through a website, or is it through a phone number? What does that look like?
Just for the organization in general?
Yeah. If they want to reach that call center.
Well, the quickest way is if they go online and they fill out the application if they're needing assistance. So if they go to usacares.org and then fill out, there's a link on there for getting assistance, and you just click on that link and fill out the application. There's also a 1-800 number on the website, and that is perfectly fine for them to call that as well.
I'll look up those links and put those in the show notes. I just want to make sure I articulate that right, so I'll verify with you we've got the right link there. And if somebody wants to contact you about them or their organization becoming a donor of some kind, I assume there's a link on your website for that as well?
Yeah, we would love that. So if they go onto the website, same website, usacares.org, they can click around and they can read and hear about stories of veterans. And we've got some recordings on our site that will just pull your heartstrings. You know what I'm saying?
I'm sure.
Some recordings of calls that we've had with veterans when they found out that we were able to give them assistance and stuff. We've got some different drawings that we received from some beautiful kids, just thinking stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we have the opportunity for you to partner with us. So we would love that if you would partner with us, either volunteering or being a monthly donor. We'd be so grateful for it either.
Okay. Last question for me.
Yes,
you mentioned
sir.
You mentioned chapters. Is there a list of how would I know if there's a chapter near me? Is that listed on your site as well?
There is. Yes.
Okay,
yes.
great.
It is on the website, and we don't have a ton of chapters around the country yet, but we would love to start one wherever you're at. So
There you go.
if you are in a location that doesn't yet have a chapter, please reach out to us, and we'd love to work with you to get that going.
Deal. I'll make sure I explicitly find those links to start a chapter, to be a donor, or to reach out for help. I'll make sure all three of those are in the show notes, or it's one click away. But man, thank you for what your organization is doing. To think about what what is precipitated when suicide happens, and this is a cost I'm sure nobody in the nation can begin to define. The downstream of that, what that leads to for the surviving spouse and the kids and all of that, the cost of that cannot be defined. Even if it was a dollar amount, you can't define all the other emotional and things that go with that. This is a problem we have to attack. So man, I'm really, really glad to bring some light to this. I'm thankful there are people like you who seem to be a bottomless well of passion and compassion to do this, because that's a very, very hard job to do. No matter how meaningful it is, it's still in your face every day, and that's hard. And I'm just extremely grateful to have learned about USA Cares and to hear what you're doing. And we're going to do all we can to bring some light to it, my friend.
Well, I appreciate you, and thank you very much, Greg. And thank you for just the opportunity to get our mission out there a little bit further. Really appreciate all
My
your
pleasure, sir. My pleasure, sir. Thanks for your time today.
Thank
Hopefully
you,
we'll talk
sir.
again soon.
Okay. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Well, that wraps today's episode of Serious Talk, the Military Minute. Huge thanks to Matt Maples for breaking down the mission of USA Cares and the practical, urgent ways they support veteran families, especially when housing and stability are on the line. If you are in or know a family of veterans, I'm sure this hits home with you. Will you do me a favor and share this one out, please? There are all sorts of support that should and are being offered. None are more important and timely than this. Share this episode with a veteran or military spouse who's navigating transition or who might need a lifeline right now. And if you want to support the mission, check the links and resources in the show notes, including how to request assistance, how to donate, and how to explore chapters. If you haven't yet, follow or subscribe to the show and leave a review. It genuinely helps more people in the military community find these conversations and these important resources. And to every veteran military spouse listening, thank you. Your service and your sacrifice matter. You matter, and you're not alone on this journey. Music credit and special thank you goes out to Jason Fowler for allowing us to use his song, Mystery Road. For any follow-up questions, reach out to us at serioustalk@gmail.com. SeriousSolutions.com. The address will also be in the show notes. Until next time, take care of yourself and take care of each other.